Welcome to the Friday Happy Hour with victory strategist, award-winning author and your happy hour host, Annmarie Kelly. Each week, Annmarie chats with women who have reinvented, started over or wrote fabulous next chapters. They share how they overcame their midlife challenges and how you can too. So kick back with some good happy hour something to drink and enjoy today's show.
All of my friends tell me that I'm the good girl, yes they do. They all see me as being so perfect, little Miss Goody Two Shoes. If I do something a little risque, they all gasp and I just say, good.
Hi and welcome. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour with me, Annmarie Kelly. I'm that recovering good girl and your Victorious Woman Empowerment Partner. And this is where us victory chicks and you guys love us meet on Fridays to chat about things we can do to make our lives better and more fulfilling and give us a little more jazz and sparkle. Thanks for coming to Happy Hour today on this, again, hot summer, and it's Friday the 13th, so I hope you're staying cool. Hey, listen, you know how life sort of dumps crap on us every once in a while? Well, the adage is that it's not what happens, but how you deal with it that makes the difference. Our guest today is Leslie Handler, and she does it. She's had plenty of crap hit her life, but she does it with a light touch, and it includes a good sprinkling of humor. So we're going to have some fun with her today, and Leslie will be here in a few minutes. I had a busy week with work things, but also with blinds. Have you gotten new blinds lately? Well, if you haven't, you need them. And you need them. You're in for a shock. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But first, let's talk passwords. I was in password hell this week. Here's what happened. I've been feeling kind of underwater lately with work. I've been noticing it's summer, and in summer, aren't we supposed to be downshifting and have more free time? Yes, of course we are. And I hope you're doing it because I haven't been, which is why I recently hired a virtual assistant or a VA. Now, if you've ever done that, the process isn't an easy one. And you might remember how earlier this year I hired someone to help me do some promotional work for my new book, The 5-Year Marriage, Shifting the Marriage Paradigm. And how after a month of charging me a lot of money to do nothing, and I don't mean that euphemistically, I did a lot of work that she said she needed to do the marketing, and then she did nothing except make a banner for my Girlfriend Gala Eventbrite page. Well, I'm guessing you know how that is. You know, you start something that is, and you think it's going to work, and then it doesn't. And in the book business, there are a lot of people who can tell you that they can do a lot of things. And then you find out they can't. Although, maybe it's not just the book business. I'm thinking about the time I took a hypnosis seminar to stop smoking. And it was guaranteed, or so the guy said. Do you know that? I'll bet you know that one. And when on my way home, after that magical seminar, I lit up a cigarette, I thought, I don't think this worked. And it didn't. And when I finally did stop, it had nothing to do with hypnosis. And you might think it was because of health issues, like I wanted to protect my health or something. And if you thought that, you'd be wrong. It was for vanity. Somebody hugged me one day, and though I hadn't had a cigarette for a few hours before that, the hugger thought I had just had one. And he could still smell the smoke in my hair. Well, I didn't stop right then, but I made the decision then, and I stopped later that year. However, I can tell you this, if I hadn't stopped then, I would have had to have stopped now, because cigarettes are so expensive. And for those of you who still smoke, doesn't it tick you off that the government keeps putting one tax after another on those packs? It's like a subversive way to get you to comply with some faction of the government that thinks you shouldn't be smoking. It's like the cities that impose a soda tax because it's not good for you and you're too stupid to figure that out. So it's taxed enough to make you stop. I hate that, even though I know how bad smoking is and how soda eats at your bones, which is why I almost never drink soda anymore, except in the summer when I mix it with rum. And for those of you who just cringed, not only do I drink soda, but I drink diet soda. But it's my choice. So for you smokers out there, I empathize with you. Yes, I think you could stop smoking for your health or for your vanity. But that has to be your decision, right? Anyway, back to password hell. When I fired the person in February, the one that was doing nothing, I was back to square one. And here's the thing. Marketing isn't my forte. I still needed help. So in May, I hired someone else. But I only hired that person to do one project, just to see how she worked. I fired her almost immediately because she got snippy with me. I don't think, especially with some younger people, they understand the whole customer service part of business. They don't understand about, I don't work on the weekends, even though I said I would do this by Friday. And there's a lot of things they seem not to quite understand about that. But, when you're paying somebody, when somebody's paying you for a service and you're providing it, it's not good to be disrespectful to them. And I have to say, it's one of the things I admire about Joseph. He's in a tough field of it's massage therapy. And when a client is new to his practice and in pain, they aren't always in the best of spirits. And you know how we are. We don't want to be in pain, and we want a miracle pill or a miracle treatment. So we, all of us, get demanding. And Joseph handles that with clients so beautifully and so much better than I think I would have in his situation, which is why he has some clients who have been seeing him for 20 years and some even longer than that. So anyway, at the beginning of the month, I hired a virtual assistant to do some of the more mechanical tasks for me so I can focus on things that only I can do. So far, it's good, except that she needed some accounts and passwords, and I gave them to her. Except, I think I must have changed some and not written them anywhere. Like, you know how it's like you just change them and then you think you'll remember it and then you don't. And then on some of the accounts, I used different emails, and my passwords were like my home office, a total mess. So she was having a terrible time trying to work. My fault, not hers. So I spent almost a day fixing that stuff. And for a while, I felt like those kids in Thailand, like I was stuck in a cave with no food, no water, and no way out. It was bad. And I wish I had a SEAL team to help me out. But it's not like that with passwords. And some of you are saying, well, I should use a password manager, and that would make sense, except that I know somebody who did, and the service that he used got hacked, and the hackers got into his accounts. You know what I think? I think someday we're all going to be old and babbling numbers and words, and people around us will be wondering what secrets we're trying to tell them. And we won't be trying to tell them anything. We'll just be reciting our passwords and driving the people, our caregivers, crazy. So anyway, I got out of password hell this week and stepped right into blind buying hell, which was the last time, which I don't know when the last time you bought blinds were. It was custom-made blinds I haven't bought for 20 years. So, I was thinking about it, and I seem to recall being a kid, and my mom had custom-made Venetian blinds, and they were metal. And when the tapes got frayed, she didn't buy new ones. She just sent them to the blind man who replaced the tapes. And when she moved in 2008, she still had those same shades. When I had my first apartment in Alden, Pennsylvania, I was so excited not to have blinds that I could buy my own stuff and get shades. It was kind of a neat thing, but they weren't custom made. In fact, I probably bought them at the Bazaar of All Nations in Springfield. Do you remember that place? Some of you do. Well, I did a little bit better when Joseph and I had our first house, and when we moved to Westchester in 1998. I had the latest fashion window coverings, which now in 2008 are old school. Well, not all of them. The very cool feature was top down, bottom up, and I loved those. And they're still popular. But now they're either cordless or motorized. And it seems to me Venetian blinds are more popular now than they were in 1998. But not the mini blinds, those 1-inch ones that were popular for a while. According to the blind site, those are for offices and for rooms that nobody uses, like your attic. Well, it's not challenging enough to make the choice of Venetian, cellular, Roman. You also have to decide on cellular, wood, faux wood. And do you want vertical or horizontal? You know, Victory Chicks, all I wanted to do was replace the blinds in my bedroom. I didn't realize I'd have to get a master's degree in blinds before I did it. I sort of feel like I should just go to Home Depot and get something already made. Except that I know I wouldn't be happy with those. But also this week, I learned of the passing of the spouse of a woman I really like. So though I'm carping out blinds and VAs, I'm reminded that those things are only temporary inconveniences. And one day I hope I'll be able to handle those things as well as Leslie Handler does. You probably already know Leslie. She's an award-winning columnist with Senior Wire Services and a frequent contributor to WHYY, the Philadelphia Inquirer, Zest Now, Boomer Cafe, Huffington Post. She's every place. So go get some good happy hour something to drink and come back with me as I chat about rats, mice, and other things you can't take to the bank with Leslie Handler. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour. Are you one of those women who lived the first part of your life as a really good girl? That is, you did all the right things and followed all the so-called rules for women? I was like that too. But have you noticed that once you passed 40, you have less patience for those rules? Maybe you even think that the rules really don't make sense for you anymore. Maybe they never did and you just didn't realize it. Do you want to go where other recovering good girls meet to inspire each other and support their new empowered selves? Then join me, Annmarie Kelly, and some very fabulous victorious women. We're on Facebook at the Victorious Woman Project. So go to facebook.com/Victorious Woman Project. I'll talk to you there. Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour with me, Annmarie Kelly, and our guest today, Leslie Handler. Hi, Leslie. How are you today?
I'm great, Annmarie. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing very well. I don't know if you were listening. I'm out of password hell and out of blind hell. So.
Well, you got to read a story in my book all about password hell. I can relate completely.
I know. You know, Leslie, we were together at a book signing at the Marple Library in Broomall, and we had a couple minutes to talk about ourselves. You know, like when they were introducing us and stuff, and talk about our books. But yours intrigued me. And actually, it was talking with you afterwards that most caught my interest. So you titled this book, Rats, Mice, and Other Things You Can't Take to the Bank. And you compare yourself to a rat. Now, Leslie, most of us wouldn't do that, but you actually created an interesting analogy between you and rats. Could you explain that to my listeners?
Well, sure. To be honest, rats basically are kind of champions in the world. I mean, we do get scared of them, especially us women. I hate to generalize, but many of us will jump on top of the table to get away from one. But when you think about them, they can do amazing things. They can squeeze through pipes the width of a little quarter. They can scale a brick wall straight up. They can fall off a 5-story building and land safely on their feet. They can rear up their hind legs and box with their front paws. They can get flushed down a toilet and still live. They can climb right back up the drain pipe. And they're really good with traps. You can set a trap for them, and they'll go all around the trap until it snaps, and then they'll take the bait. Sometimes I think some of them might even be able to read. They're so smart. But basically, the bottom line is they're survivors. No matter what happens to them, they survive. So I think that the comparison that I give is basically I, too, am a survivor, and I'm strong like a rat. Some people might say strong as a bull. I say strong as a rat.
You grew up in New York, didn't you?
No, actually, I'm born and raised in Texas and the Cayman Islands.
Oh, that's right. I do remember that. But you live in New York.
I live in New Jersey.
Why am I thinking that you live in New York and Pennsylvania?
Probably because on my website it says that I live smack dab in between Philadelphia and New York City.
That's what I'm thinking.
There you go.
Yeah. So, but when you and I talked after that time in Broomall, you explained that you started to explain like you've had your share of crap. But you know what, Leslie? Unlike the rest of us who sort of bristle about the crap we've had to deal with, in your book you say that you're grateful for it. What's up with that?
Well, it kind of of them, I mean, let's face it, very, very few of us live charmed lives. There are a few that get lucky and they live completely charmed lives. But we all have garbage that happens in our lives. All of us do. And as the saying goes, if we all put our garbage on the middle of a table and we could take any garbage we wanted, we'd end up taking our own garbage back again because we know how to deal with it. We're used to it. We've grown accustomed to it. So in a way, I feel that when I was very young, my thinking and my compassion and my empathy for other people was very different than it is all these years later. And I truly believe that what made it different were the challenges that I had in life. And I think that as I've aged, hopefully I've become much more of a compassionate person, much more understanding of others and what they're going through, and realizing that life is not so black and white as I thought and wanted it to be when I was young. Just because you've made a mistake in life doesn't mean that you're a terrible person for the whole rest of your life. So the bottom line is, to me, all the crap that happened to me in my life, I'm appreciative of because I think it made me a better person and a better human being.
Well, you know, Leslie, don't you think it, like now that we're in midlife, that we aren't as judgmental as we might have been when we were in our 20s and even our 30s?
I hope that's right.
Yeah.
I truly believe that I am nowhere near as judgmental as I used to be.
I recently had something happen with somebody who was going to be a guest on the show in the next couple of weeks, and she called and she said, I have to cancel because, and it was something with her mother. And, you know, having been there and done that, I know what that's like. It's like, yeah, that has to be your top priority, radio.
Yeah.
You know, it has to be your top priority. I don't think I would have thought that like 20 or 30 years ago.
Yeah, I think we're also more self-centered when we're younger. You might have taken a different reaction, like, how dare you ruin my show and make me run around at the last minute trying to find someone to replace you, as opposed to all these years later, you can relate. You know what that's like, and you can be more understanding.
Yeah, I think that really is one of the blessings of midlife. That because remember, I can say for myself anyway, that it used to make me really angry, and then I'd get into a big tiz, and you know, and I'd hold on to that for a couple of days, and that doesn't happen very much anymore.
Well, you were better than I am, because mine held on for days, weeks, months.
Okay, I'll fess up. So some of it did. So you said you're a survivor. So let's talk a little bit about that. You had cancer.
Yeah, not once, not twice, but so many times, unfortunately, I've actually lost count.
Yeah, for 20 years.
Over 20.
And so how did it just keep coming back? Or explain that to my listeners. It just likes
me. I'm a very friendly person, I guess. So actually, once again, I have to be grateful. I happen to have gone to a dentist for a regular checkup. And during that regular checkup, the dentist found a little tiny spot on my tongue and said, it's probably nothing, but you should go have it checked out. So I had it checked out, and I was told it was sort of a precancerous growth, and it could stay that way for the rest of my life and never be anything, but to keep on checking it now and then. So I kept on checking it now and then, and sure enough, one day, it wasn't so benign anymore.
And then they did surgery?
Yeah, so the good news is, yes, I've had multiple surgeries over the years, and, you know, it's moved around tongue, throat, jaw, lost teeth, all kinds of things like that. I mean, I won't go into gory details, but it likes to keep coming back. The good news is that I'm still here to tell you all about it.
Yeah.
So,
that's good.
You know, with oral cancers, 95% of people that have oral cancers that's caught late do not survive. However, 95% of people with oral cancers that catch it early do survive. So I'm one of the lucky ones.
And it's a good reason to remind everybody to go for your dental checkup.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then the next thing, another thing that you had was you lost your house in Hurricane Sandy.
No, it didn't lose the house in Hurricane Sandy. Hurricane Sandy, we were in a little rental because of what had happened previously. We had owned a home for, a couple of decades. And, 2008 happened. And both my husband and I ended up out of work. I first ended up out of work because of my cancers, and I had been working all along, all the years with the cancers, and finally my job said, you've had 3 in the last year, you can't come back anymore. And I was kind of forced out onto disability, and there I was without a job. But my husband had a good job, and we cut back, and we were doing fine until my husband's company said, you know what, we're bleeding money, we don't want to stay in business anymore. So they didn't just lay him off, they closed their doors, which meant now we couldn't get COBRA either. Back then, we didn't have the Affordable Care Act, and if you had a pre-existing condition, well, good luck to you. Wow. So it was, the game of play the doctor or pay the bank, and the doctor won. So eventually we downsized to a little rental, and that's how we ended up in Bucks County, PA, in a little rental house when Sandy hit. And when Sandy hit, we were in a rental, so we did not own the home. There was really no damage to the home at all. We just lost power like 5 gazillion other people did. Mm-hmm. But so did my 90-year-old mother-in-law lose power, who lived up in North Jersey. And we couldn't help her because we didn't have power either. So we were very fortunate, though, because eventually we did get power before she did, and we went tucking up there to pick her up and the aide that she lived with, and we're in this little tiny rental place, and we had to take the door off of the bathroom so that we could fit her wheelchair in and out of the bathroom. So we just lived that way for a couple of days with no bathroom door, and my mother-in-law and her aide, and we all survived. So once again, those rats, they do good things.
And see, I remember reading that about that you had to go pick them up, and you had no space.
Yeah, it was a tiny little place, and basically my mother-in-law's wheelchair took up the whole living room. But you do what you got to do.
But they got back in her.
Yes. We eventually she got power back as well, and we did get her, home and settled, and she was happy to be home, and of course in her own environment. But we get through this stuff.
I know. There's more I want to ask you about, but we need to take a break. So Leslie, we're going to do that. Everybody stay with us, and we'll be right back. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour. Hi, this is Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. I trust you're enjoying my conversation with this fabulous, victorious woman. If you're getting inspired with ideas and feeling empowered, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's more for you. Tips, downloads, resources at the Victorious Woman Project. Go to victoriouswoman.com and look around and get on my mailing list so you can be the first to know about the newest good things I have for you. That's www.victoriouswoman.com. Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. This is Annmarie Kelly, and I'm here with Leslie Handler. We're talking about rats, mice, and other things you can't take to the bank. So, Leslie, let's talk a little bit about fairies. I have to tell you, when I read that, when I read that chapter, I laughed so hard because I didn't think anybody else ever talked about the toilet paper fairy.
I think all women are fairies. I do. I think there are men that are fairies, but I think pretty much all women are fairies. They just are. They sprinkle their pixie dust wherever they go, and nobody else notices that they sprinkled it.
I remember somebody telling me that she was out of commission she was in the hospital. She was out of commission for about a week, and she said, she was talking about her spouse, and she said, he was like, well, this didn't happen, and that didn't happen. She said, don't you understand, like all that, I do all that stuff, and I do it seamlessly, so you don't even notice.
I think sometimes when you live with other people, they just don't get it. They don't they think magically things just happen. The toilet paper gets replaced. It's always there. It's just always there. That's because of the toilet paper fairy. And, in our house, we have the tool fairy as well. And the tool fairy didn't appear until much later in our marriage because I didn't realize that every time my husband took out a tool, he didn't actually take it out. He went and bought a new one because he never put the old one away, and he didn't didn't know where it was.
And drill bits. Drill bits is the big thing.
Puts the tools back where they belong.
I know, Leslie, drill bits are the big thing.
Yes, absolutely. He bought 3 different sets of drill bits before I finally realized, okay, I have to put them back home where they live.
Well, I never thought about the tool fairy, although I will tell you this, Leslie. When I think about the drill bits, I always notice whenever Joseph's working on a project, he says, I need a new drill bit. And I can't even imagine that there are that many different sizes of drill bits. But I think what I realized one time was that I think going to the store to buy a drill bit gives Joseph an opportunity to go and ask directions from the guy at Home Depot or Lowe's or Ace or wherever he goes. And so the drill bit is more of an excuse.
Now, see, that's so perfect, because my husband's just not a handyman, and we solved this issue very, very early on in the first year of our 35-year marriage, because we would try to split the chores. We both worked, and I would do mine and he wouldn't do his. And I said, okay, this isn't going to work. If you want to stay married, we have to find a solution. So our solution was either I do it or I hire someone to do it, because he's never going to do it. So there was one time when he decided he accidentally broke our toilet seat. He was trying to fix it one day, and he ended up breaking it. And as it turned out, we had to buy a whole new toilet.
Oh, no.
Well, he was bound and determined that he was not calling a plumber, and he was not paying for a whole new toilet to be purchased and installed. So I understand completely what you said when your husband goes to get directions at Home Depot, because I thought my husband had a girlfriend there. He went there every day for 2 weeks. And he would go and go, okay, what do I need to buy now? Okay, and what's the next step? Okay, the next day. Okay, what do I need to buy now? What's the next step? And he very, very proudly put in, I'm proud to say, a new toilet for us. Of course, the old one stayed upstairs for almost a year before I finally hired someone to haul it out of the house.
And probably if you had hired somebody from the beginning, you would have had a toilet faster, and they would have disposed of the old toilet.
Of course. But, you know, there's a reason I've been married for 35 years.
You're a patient woman.
You know, your story when you started your show, your poor blinds story and what your mother went through with the blinds.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny. It really reminded me that, you know, we used to actually fix things. And nowadays, if something's broke, you don't fix it.
You get a new one.
Go buy a new one.
Yeah.
So and one of the stories in my book is just like this. It's called Stupid Things. And basically it references things like, you know, I used to have a stupid TV. The TV would give me all kinds of static, and there was this old-fashioned thing called horizontal hold, and you'd bang on the top of the TV and you'd put it in its place, and it would fix itself and go on until it finally wouldn't fix itself, and you would take it into the shop, to the hospital, and the doctor would fix it, and he would home deliver it. You'd have, you know, a doctor actually making a home visit, because the TV repairman would come and fix the TV. Well, nowadays, we buy these things called smart TVs, right? And the smart TVs can do everything. But I kind of got something on the smart TVs. They think those TVs are so smart, but when they break, I don't call the fix-it man. I buy a new one.
I know, because it's going to cost you $75 just to have somebody come over, and for like not a whole, and then
they won't fix it. They'll tell you in the end it can't be fixed.
Yeah, it's like, well, this little, it's the board or something, whatever. It's silly things they are.
They don't sell that part anymore.
Oh, that's right. Although I will tell you this, Leslie, I have a turntable. It's not a new turntable. It's my turntable from like a million years ago, and it didn't work anymore. And there used to be, he's not here anymore, but there used to be a man right here in Westchester who did that kind of stuff. So about, I'm thinking maybe 10 years ago, for my birthday, Joseph had my turntable fixed.
Aww.
And now I can listen to vinyl.
Aww.
And now vinyl's back.
Yep, so, there you go. See, you're hip and in.
There you go. But, you know, that chapter about the fairies just cracked me up. And for me, it was like in the first 5 years of when Joseph and I got married, it was like, did you always think that there was a toilet paper fairy? But it wasn't just toilet paper. It was ice cube. Oh, yeah. I think Joseph thought there was an ice cube fairy.
fairies for everything. They're everywhere. They are everywhere.
Well, I was talking to somebody about your book yesterday, and what you say, and it was that tell me how you said it. That the more fairies there are, the tireder you get. Is that how you said it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you get exhausted to the point where, my comment was basically, what happened to the tooth fairy? At least she got paid.
I know. And then you said, did you have to go to school to get a fairy degree?
Yeah.
I know.
You do. It's funny. I try really hard to just notice the silly things in life. And sometimes you need to distance yourself to turn things into something that's a little bit funny. Like if it's too close to home, you just went through the blind episode where you get so frustrated and, all the time and effort that you put and you get involved and you get angry. But as time passes and you look back at it, you start to chuckle at what the occurrence actually was. I mean, it's just little things that you start noticing. I was listening to the news the other night, and I could not believe my ears. I'm listening to the regular NBC national news, and Lester Holt comes on, and I don't know if you happen to hear the story about how coffee now drinking coffee is supposed to be great for you.
Oh, yeah, and it goes back and forth.
Yeah, and my husband and I, we drink 10 tons of coffee. We drink 24/7. We drink coffee. And the line that came out of Lester Holt's mouth was, drinking coffee makes you 15% less likely to die. And I was like, wait a minute, he couldn't have actually said that.
Oh, my.
I said, rewind the TV. And we used the DVR, we rewound it, we played it back, and we said, it was exactly what I heard. Drinking coffee makes you 15% less likely to die. So I'm like ready to call all my family members and all my loved ones and all my friends and say, start drinking a whole bunch of coffee because we have a 15% chance of never dying. And I thought, surely when the commercial break, is over, he's going to correct what he said. No, nothing further was ever said about it. So the next morning, I'm listening to the Today Show, and Savannah Guthrie comes on, and it's the same line of the same story. Drinking coffee makes you 15% less likely to die. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe they're repeating this line. But sure enough, right after she said that, she said, over a 10-year period. It kind of makes a little bit of a difference.
That makes a big difference.
Wow, the news is telling me I just might live forever.
I'll tell you, if that was true, Leslie, I've never had a cup of coffee.
You might start.
I would start drinking it. In fact, last week, Joseph and I were at, I think we were at Starbucks, and I drink tea, and he had his coffee, and I accidentally picked up his coffee, and I tasted it, and I'm like, oh. And he said, what are you drinking my coffee for? It was a mistake. I swear it was a mistake. I would never drink that swill. And he just got hysterical because he's a big coffee drinker. But he really likes Wawa and Dunkin' Donuts are his favorites. So. Well,
there you go. I mean, everybody's got their, some people, they're the Starbucks people, and the Starbucks people don't like the Dunkin' people, and the Dunkin' people don't like the Starbucks people.
Yeah, but it's funny. But I will tell you, the story that made me laugh and grossed me out at the same time. Would you explain to my listeners how your cousin ate Aunt Mary?
Oh, God. Well, part of that story I can tell. The other part, it actually has to be read to be understood, because it's actually a story about homophobes. I can't even pronounce it right. So if you remember from school, what a homophone is a word that sounds exactly like another word, but it's spelled differently and it has a different meaning. So like the word bored, it could be B-O-R-E-D and mean you're bored with what you're doing or the lack thereof, or it could be B-O-R-A-D, like a chalkboard. So a lot of the story, you have to be able to read it to be able to understand the humor in it. But the part that you're referring to is actually, I'm told a true story that was told in my family for decades, that we had relatives overseas, and it was during the war, and they were very short on supplies and rations. So we would put care packages together and send them over. And I had a relative who sent over a care package to this aunt in Europe. And in the care package were all kinds of tins of different food items, and one of the tins had no label. So the aunt assumed the label had fallen off, and she opened the tin, and she looked inside, and she sees like an orange powder, and she figures, oh, it must be, for soup. And she throws it in a pot of boiling water and boils up a big pot of soup and throws in some veggies and whatever she's got to make a meal and eats the soup. And a couple days later, a letter follows the package saying, dear Aunt Mary, I hope that you got, our care package, and I'm sorry to inform you that I had to include the ashes of your cousin in the tin in the box. Oh, my God, Aunt Mary realized she ate her Aunt Mary, and she went running through the streets. I ate my aunt. Oh, it was terrible. It was horrible, but it was funny. It was horrible. It was so funny.
That would be horrible.
It's horrible, but it's also funny. I mean, you can't help but laugh.
But doesn't it sound like something that you would have watched in like one of the old Twilight Zone episodes? I know. That's what I thought. I was like, and I actually think there was one like that at some point, because that's that show is still on television on one of the some
I
station.
think every year what time of year is it? Thanksgiving, once a year on a holiday, they have a marathon. And I'm too old to remember which holiday it is.
But is it Twilight Zone? And what was the other one that was like really scary around that time? It was, and of course I'm not going to remember Twilight Zone. I'm not going to remember it. And we need to take a break. So when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about about your spouse Marty and the World Trade Center and how you dealt with that.
Okay.
So everybody stay close. We'll be right back. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour. Remember when you wished you had more time for yourself? And now you have it, but you notice you're keeping busy with stuff, but that stuff isn't making you feel happy or filled up? And when you think about what would make you happy and filled up, you get stuck or feel overwhelmed. And then you go back to what's more familiar, more comfortable, even if it's not making you happy. Wouldn't you love to find a way to start making sense of that deep discontent you're feeling? Well, you're not alone. I'm Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. And I know there's a place for you, one that other women have found to be both inspirational and empowering. And it's the Victorious Woman Project. Go there now and get on my mailing list, where you'll be the first to know about my upcoming online workshops, teleseminars, and more. And while you're there, take a couple minutes to look over my blog. You can download some of the free stuff I have for you and let it get your creative juices going. I'm looking forward to meeting you at the Victorious Woman Project. And that's at www.victoriouswoman.com. Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm Annmarie Kelly, and I'm here with Leslie Handler. And we were just talking about how her cousin ate her Aunt Mary. So if you missed that story, you missed a good one. So Leslie, your spouse, Marty, was in the World Trade Center on 9/11, and what a blessing that he survived. How did he walk out unscathed?
Well, fortunately, he didn't actually work in the World Trade Center. He took the train in every single day. Mm-hmm. So he had taken the train into the World Trade Center on 9/11, as so many thousands and thousands of people do. And actually, he worked across the street from the World Trade Center. So he left the train station and walked across the street as he always does. And within a very few minutes of his leaving the train station and getting into work, the first plane hit. Mm. And the progression of what happened that day just goes on in our heads over and over. It replays. Yeah. But he was basically in lockdown in his building. And the lights were flickering, and there were no windows that you could see through because it was all black smoke as he describes it, he's the one that was there. He fortunately had cell service at the time, and most of his colleagues could not get cell service. So for whatever reason, he did, and he called me to let me know that he was okay and gave me a list of guys and their wives and said, please call these guys' wives and tell them we're okay. They're not letting us out of the building, but we're okay right now. And this was before the first tower hit. So I hung up from him, and 5 million people were trying to call in to check on my husband because they knew that he worked there. And I kept saying, please get off the phone, please get off the phone. I'm trying to call other people to let them know their husbands are okay. And in the midst of that, another phone call comes in. It's my husband again telling me they're trying to get out of the building because the first tower was going down, and he's in the middle of telling me that the tower's going down and their building is shaking, and we get disconnected. So I'm, of course, in a tizzy, and I've got the TV on, and I'm watching the blow-by-blow, and all of a sudden we hear the Pentagon's been hit, and I'm thinking, oh, my God, the whole country's under attack, and my husband's in the middle of it, and I can't reach him, and hours go by, and we don't know what's going on. And eventually I finally get a phone call from him that he had a colleague who was female and very pregnant, and they threw her into a wheelchair that was somewhere in their building, and he and another friend of his went pushing her out towards Battery Park in New York City, which is where they were forcing everyone to run and walk and whatnot. And he, all of a sudden, the second tower came down, and he was being chased by this big plume of smoke and debris, and he pushed her in the wheelchair into a bar. Literally, the bar door opened, and they were waving people in, and they scrambled into this bar until a plume of smoke passed, and then they left the bar and made their way down to Battery Park and managed to get on a tugboat and got over to the Jersey side of the river and caught a cab, and somehow by 3 o'clock that afternoon, my husband walks in with a colleague covered in debris and smoke, but they were alive and they were unhurt. Unfortunately, he lost a lot of friends that he knew that day who happened to have had a breakfast at the Windows on the World restaurant on the top of the World Trade Center. So, and the things that he witnessed and heard are things that probably no human being should ever witness and hear. So it was definitely a life-changing day for both of us.
So how did that change your life? What did you think differently after that happened?
Well, a lot of people will be very judgmental about how we handled it, but my husband is Jewish, and I am as well, and we were never super religious. I was not raised very religious, but still within the religion. My husband was raised much more religiously than I, and over the years, we would go occasionally to services and occasionally celebrate the various holidays and whatnot, but I would not say that we were super religious people. When 9/11 happened, basically religion went out the window for us. We would listen to newscasts about 9/11 or newscasts about the most recent tornado that hit, some southern state, and we'd hear somebody talk on the news about, oh, by the grace of God, I was saved, and they look over at their neighbor's house whose house was demolished, and all the family members did not survive, and my thought was, well, did God not grace them? Did God not love them? Did they not pray enough? What made you better than the person next to them? And I've just experienced over the years so much hatred over religion, over one religion being different than another, and the fact that 9/11 occurred because some people claimed that was their religion, that it just kind of had to go out the window for us. And to me, that doesn't make me a bad person. I still feel that I give back to my community. I do charitable works. I live a life of integrity, and I try to be very non-judgmental of how other people live their lives. So it definitely changed us forever.
And one of the things that, and you talk about this in Rats, Mice, and Other Things You Can't Take to the Bank, is about, and it's something, and 9/11 changed you, but for a lot of people, there seems to be something, and in midlife, it happens, but you use a term that I just loved. It's called lady in waiting. and how being a lady in waiting could be the worst thing we could do. So tell my listeners about that.
Well, I adore children, and it's very clear in some of the stories in my book that I adore children. And I actually never even realized how much I adored them until I had my own. And, of course, I adored mine more than anybody else's. Mm. But I learned that I still adored everybody else's, too. And by the time my kids got to be high school age, I still, of course, enjoyed their company, even as teenagers, believe it or not, although they were challenging. But I kept missing those baby years. I just kept missing those little girls that I knew when they were babies. And I thought, I could have another baby now, and then I'd never be babyless again for the rest of my life. Because by the time my teenagers grew up to be adults and the baby became a teenager, the adults would be married and give me babies. And then the teenagers would grow up, and so it would be an ongoing thing.
Right.
Of course, those are my plans for myself. My children seem to have a different life, and they make their own decisions and plan their own lives.
No matter what you say.
So my youngest daughter just got married about 2 months ago, and, of course, I'm dying for the phone call. I won't even say it. We all know the phone call I want, but she's only been married for 2 months. I got to give the kid a break. So I'm trying really, really hard to keep my mouth shut and let them do what they're going to do in the time that they want to do it. But in the meantime, I'm a lady in waiting.
Oh, that's so funny. And it's not just, I can tell you that it's not just ladies in waiting. I was at a 4th of July party, and somebody had a newborn, and it was so cute, and everybody was like fussing over the newborn. And one of the guys there said, yeah, I can't wait until my son has kids. And it just sort of shocked me. It shocked me because, and I know you guys, I'm sorry, but I never think about that with you guys. I think about it's always with the victory chicks. But he was as anxious as any other person, as any woman I've ever heard about becoming a grandfather. So it was kind of neat.
Well, he's a guy after my own heart.
There you go. Now, we're going to need to go, but before we go, I would like you to tell my listeners about the Scrub Daddy.
Oh. Well, I don't know if you guys have bought a Scrub Daddy or not, but a Scrub Daddy is this adorable little sponge that I think is one of the best inventions out there. If it's cold, it's hard, and it scrubs hard, and if you put it in warm water, it gets soft, and you can wipe down things without, scratching them. And I just made the analogy that I thought they were the coolest thing because they come round with a little smiley face, and they're always happy. And so that was my first thought is I love to, do dishes with something that's happy all the time, so that's good. And then I made this analogy about hardcore people and softcore people, or I don't know a better way to put it, but I've had people in my life, and I do describe 2 such people in the book. One being a little bit too soft, if you can believe in too soft. Just the kind of person that every little thing is a complaint. Every little thing is a complaint. And if 2 little things happen in the same day, oh my God, disaster has struck. And I don't want to be such a soft person that every little thing affects me so much. On the other side of the coin, I've had another friend that I've had to disassociate myself with. She's a tough cookie, and I believe in strong and tough women, but she's such a tough cookie that she won't ever let anyone in to touch her heart. And so my analogy to the Scrub Daddy is there's soft and there's hard, and I kind of want to be the spot in the smile in between.
Interesting. That's lovely, Leslie. And our time is up for today, and I'm glad we left on that particular note. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Have a great weekend.
You too.
Thanks. Well, Victory Chicks and you guys, we're at the end of the week and wrapping up another Friday happy hour together on this hot Friday the 13th. And I'd love to tell you I have nothing to do this week, but I'd be lying. Tonight I'm going to see Better Than Bacon at the Nauer Performing Arts Center. And tomorrow night I'm playing Pinnacle. And then on Sunday, I can't wait to tell you about this next week, I'm going to the salt mines. well, I think they're called salt caves. And I've never done that before. So I'm curious to see what it's like. And I discovered that it's a long story how I got to do it up in Skippack. But I'm going there, and then if I like it, there are ones closer to home. So, but it's I'm telling you also because, and I'll know better next week, that it's supposed to help you if you have COPD, if you have any asthma or lung problems or allergies and things like that, that whole Himalayan salt thing. Himalayan salt got to be a really big deal. So, but listen, whatever you're doing, the East and West Goshen Park, and I think that it's East Goshen that has something going on this weekend. West Goshen has something in about 2 weeks, a performance, but there's a performance at East Goshen, so check that out. And whatever you're doing, I hope you have a victorious weekend. And here's a great quote for you. Summer, hair gets lighter, skin gets darker, water gets warmer, drinks get colder, music gets louder, nights get longer, life gets better. I hope that happens for each and every one of you this weekend, especially that the drinks get colder part. Thanks for coming to Happy Hour. Please come back with me next Friday. And until then, enjoy the summer. Chen's on.
Thanks for listening to this Friday Happy Hour. Make sure you subscribe, rate and review today's show. And join us again next week for the Friday Happy Hour with Annmarie Kelly.